hopefully I can put all of my tools to good use and help our businesses to survive. We are creating within the department a one-stop shop, we're going to call it, and encouraging business to call us if they need help with marketing, if they need help with facilities, if they need help with their finances. They should feel free to call our offices. If I can't help them directly, I will certainly give them the resource that they can tap into to get the answers that they need.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Meeting with the Manager. I'm City Manager Erik Tungate. On today's show, I have the honor and privilege of welcoming in our very own Director of Community and Economic Development, Kimberly Marrone. We will be talking about the city's response to the coronavirus outbreak in terms of business recovery. With that said, Kim, welcome to the show.
Hi, Erik. Thanks for having me today.
Well, thank you for being here. And how are you holding up in all of this?
I'm doing pretty good. The good thing is work's kept me so busy, the time's flying by. So I am anxious to get back to work and actually seeing people face to face and not being in front of the computer screen.
You know, we've heard so much about the medical aspects of the virus and the outbreak and the government response to it, of course. But I think what's also important is to look at the economic impact that this is going to have. So I'm curious, you being our leader in terms of how the city is positioning itself out there in the business community, I'm curious what you're hearing and what you're seeing as a result of this.
Yeah, so I've been in constant contact with our businesses, mostly via email and, of course, answering calls and any questions that they have. I did a webinar with our businesses last week, and it was actually quite surprising to hear how upbeat everybody was. They're just anxious to get back to work. They're ready to, do the work necessary to make their customers feel safe and their employees feel safe, but they're just anxious to get back to work. So, so far things are looking pretty good. It just depends on how long this is going to last for our businesses.
So, we've heard a lot about, when small businesses are allowed to reopen, let's say, we've heard a lot about how some of them might not be coming back and are going to be permanently closed. So what are you hearing and seeing in terms of that area?
Yeah, so I'm hearing a lot of reports coming out predicting anywhere between 1 and 3 businesses out of 4 will not be coming back online after this is over. They just simply don't have enough cash on hand in order to survive. However, talking to a lot of our businesses, I have not heard one yet that plans to close. The only thing I did hear is one restaurant that we had approved to start construction. They've decided to kind of postpone their plans and maybe not do that. And that was the new dairy kosher restaurant that was going to be on Greenfield. So it'll depend on how the economy rebounds. He's just nervous about opening a second restaurant. It'd be his 3rd business in Oak Park with all the uncertainty in the market right now.
We had so many projects in the pipeline going into this. And I think, for us locally, obviously the Kroger project was probably the largest of those. Mm-hmm. Where are we at as you look at the lay of the land and in terms of those particular projects?
So in regards to the projects that were in the pipeline, Kroger, of course, is probably the biggest one. They were able to start construction again on May 7th for the governor's orders. So they are back at work getting things done over there. Their opening date obviously is going to be delayed because of all of this, and they're expecting maybe sometime around Thanksgiving now as an opening date. So that one is still moving forward. We still have our Coolidge Place housing project on Coolidge, and again, they started construction as soon as the orders were lifted. So again, just a bit of a delay. And then in regards to Oak Park Social on 11 Mile, which is a new gastropub, he's resuming finalizing his construction too. Again, with all these, it's just delays. Dog and Pony Show, at the city council meeting, we did their final approval for their liquor license. So they're hoping to open in July, I believe. Unexpected Craft Brewery, he's going to begin construction again pretty soon here, as well as the Oak Parker So far, everything's still going as planned except for that one restaurant. We did approve a few items on our planning commission last night, another new restaurant, which will go in Parkwood Plaza, which is Mad Crab. And then we have a few more in the pipeline for next month. So things haven't slowed down yet there. Hopefully it continues that way.
For people watching this, they're gonna say, what assistance is out there for me, and how do I get it, and then what is the practical purpose? But explain to me how a sidewalk cafe could help a business who does retail or is a restaurant, let's say.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there's going to be probably, and again, I'm predicting guidelines as to capacity for buildings. So a lot of states have reopened with only 25% capacity for the restaurants. If we were to allow them to do some sidewalk cafes, maybe use some of the parking spaces to increase the amount of patrons they can serve, that will certainly help to go towards their bottom line. They really need to get their income levels up there in order to survive, and restaurants are a tricky business anyway. So if we can do a little bit to help them, then we should. In regards to the retail businesses too, if we're going to only be allowed so many people in a store per square feet, if we allow them to put some racks outside of their store, it would help, one, draw attention to their business, and then two, it would help increase the capacity of how many people they can serve at any one time.
So let me make a statement, and you tell me if this sounds correct. So in other words, we're going to, a lot of small businesses have a floor plan that, for a restaurant might mean they need to have a certain number of customers to cash flow. Mm-hmm. We're saying to them, hey, because of some of the restrictions on allowing people to be in the enclosed space of the restaurant, we may allow them to have an outdoor space where they could get that number they need, let's say, to make this thing work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anything we can help to increase their revenue, we want to be there to help them.
So a lot of people don't know this about you, Kim, but you are also the president of MEDA. And yes. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that, and then B of that would be to talk a little bit more about what you're seeing statewide through that organization.
Yeah, so MEDA stands for the Michigan Economic Developers Association. And in my capacity there, we've been hosting meetings for all of our economic developers within the state of Michigan, just trying to give them a little guidance, sharing all the tools and resources that we've created. For instance, I put together a business toolkit on how to reopen businesses and giving all businesses guidelines as to what they need to have in place for their plan when they reopen. Encouraging them to get to work on it right now. Let's not wait until a week before. Let's work on it now. And we're just kind of sharing all of our best practices within the state with all of our economic developers, talking to the MADC to see if there's any other resources they might be able to provide for our businesses as well. So a whole lot of collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would imagine a lot of what we're seeing here is not unique just to us. I mean, obviously there's a national and state issue here. Not staying on this more personal tone of this, but I think it's also worth mentioning that you've also recently received your certification. I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I recently found out through the National Development Council that I got my EDFP, which is an Economic Development Finance Professional Certification. And that gives me some training and background in order to look at cash flow and balance sheets, to vet projects that are coming into the city, and then to help the businesses that are currently here on ways that they can, take another look at their finances and figure out what they need to do to survive, and pointing them in the right directions of funding sources.
And what I want, especially small business, but just the business community in our city and beyond to know is that we have you here as our local resource with all these credentials and all this background and all this statewide acclamation. And we're very fortunate for that, to have you as a resource. So, and that's another thing I think a lot of people don't realize as much about Oak Park is, you've really built a true one-stop shop. And so what is our credo? We say to businesses, if you want to start a business in our community, we can get you through the approval processes here. And how fast is it?
60 days or less. Most projects are probably 40 days. It just depends on a planning commission schedule, getting them in front of the planning commission. But we like to work with our businesses from the time they meet with us, review their site plans free of charge, make amendments so that when they go to our planning commission, it's usually an approval. There's nothing that is missing from the site plan that would prevent them from being tabled and having to wait another month to go back to city council.
Right. And, a lot of, through a crisis, of course, now heading into this economic crisis, I would say our approach, and I want to have you expand on this and get your take on this, but our approach is that, really everything's on the table. We're not, turning away good ideas. What would you say to that in terms of our unconventional approach to someone who maybe wants to expand their business or do a sidewalk cafe or maybe start a new business?
Yeah, so I think what we've done really well the last few years in Oak Park is we've been very flexible with our ordinances, and we have changed a ton of them. We're actually doing a final review on revising all of our ordinances. And we're just trying to make them more business friendly and easier to get through the process and bring them more up to date to today's times. And we're very fortunate. We have a great planning commission that trusts staff in their judgment on what we recommend to them for approval, as well as our city council approving all of these ordinances to be changed. They're very flexible and open-minded, and you can't make these changes without that support, as well as yourself. City manager, you always look to us to come up with creative new ways to find a solution for problems, and that's very helpful as well.
Well, it helps me because I've got the best team in the state, so it's always nice to have an all-star team like this. I wanted to have you talk a little bit. I mean, we're kind of talking about it, but there's now 70 plus executive orders of the state. There's CDC guidelines. There's county guidelines for businesses. There's all this information out here. So, what is your take on all of that? So, if you're a small business owner, they can call you and you can help them weed through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So all the businesses that we have emails for, I'm sending them updates as soon as they come out from the state or CDC or whatever resource. But yeah, absolutely. I'm encouraging everybody to call me. You can reach me at 248-691-7404. I'm answering any time of the day and on weekends. So whenever you have a question, reach out. We want to be there to answer your questions.
So if I'm an Oak Park resident and I'm watching this show, what can I do to directly support our business community?
Well, now more than ever, it's going to be so important to support our local businesses. I know you've been relying on Amazon and other online businesses for the last few months, only because you didn't have the option. But I really hope people return to the mom and pops, the brick and mortar businesses that we have in our community, and support them so that they can continue to thrive. We don't want to see empty storefronts, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And so now I want to get into more hypothetical here, if we could. Mm-hmm. So we keep hearing about, what the economy is going to be after this is all said and done, and what this different economy or changed economy is going to look like. In your opinion, what is that?
Yeah, so there's so many different predictions out there. I think initially it's going to be hard to get people to feel safe and comfortable to go into these businesses once they're reopened, because it's been very trying and people are nervous. So the businesses need to make sure they're making their customers feel safe and their employees. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a slow start, but based on what I'm hearing and people anxious to get back to work, and I'm still getting site plans submitted and people calling about new projects, I think we'll rebound fairly quickly within a year.
Oh, that's great to hear. And I think, one of the things we talk about all the time is just the business owners, especially small business owners, retailers or restaurants who, might have some aesthetic issues mm-hmm. at their buildings. Yeah. To me, the premium is going to be placed on the aesthetics, both the indoor and outdoor aesthetics of your business. So I was hoping you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so we always encourage our businesses, of course, to put their best face forward. Stand outside your building and in your building, at least once a month and take a look at it with a fresh set of eyes and say, okay, this is what my customers are seeing. Is it attractive? Does it look clean? Does it look safe? Do they want to come in? Your curb appeal before anybody walks in the door is so important. And we want to encourage our businesses to get to work on those things right now, because now more than ever, people are really going to be looking at your business under a microscope. If they look at the outside and it's not clean and in shape, they're going to assume the same thing on the interior of your business, and they may not feel safe to come in. So they're going to need to do some really hard work and take a look at it with a new, fresh set of eyes and do everything they can to make it more appealable.
Now, I understand that, we currently have a crowdfunding campaign going on, and I was hoping you could expand on that and tell me about that.
Yeah, so Main Street, Oakland County came up with a grant match of $4,000. So if we raise $4,000 within our community and our patronicity grant, they're going to match it with another $4,000. We decided to reach out to our community and actually ask them to donate up to $10,000. So you can give at any level, whether it's $5 or $500. That money is going to go directly to our businesses, where they're going to be able to apply for a grant to get assistance using those funds. There's no admin fees. Typically, these programs charge them. All those fees are waived this time, so 100% of it will go straight to our businesses.
That's fantastic. So, Kim, for our small businesses out there, I was hoping you could help provide some information and your input on the Oakland County Small Business Granting Program.
Yeah, so the initial grant program began with the MEDC granting $10 million across the entire state. 1.15 went to Oakland County, and the county was very generous and matched that amount. So we had $2.3 million to donate to our businesses within Oakland County. They broke us up into districts, and we were part of District 12 with Ferndale, Pleasant Ridge, Royal Oak Township, and Hazel Park. And unfortunately, we couldn't give a whole lot of grants out because it's not a lot of money for an entire county, 2.3 million, but we were able to grant 17 businesses money in the round one. And then last week, the county approved an additional $12 million to go towards our small businesses for the same grant program. So we took a look at those applications again, and in the second round, we were able to grant 72 businesses funding, anywhere between $2,500 and $5,000. So we got approximately $288,000 for our small businesses here in Oak Park.
Oh, that's fantastic. Kim, I know, a lot of times when we think about an economic downturn, primarily because of the downturn from 2008, when it was really a real estate crash, I was hoping you could speak to why this is different and where the impact of this one might be.
Yeah, that's a good question. Best guess, I would say this one is totally different in the fact that it was almost a pause on the entire economy, I guess, as opposed to property values diminishing drastically. This one, it's going to rebound differently. Our property values, we don't anticipate them going down unless things get worse or we have a second wave. That could change things. But I think if we're able to start the economy back up here at the end of May, it's just going to be a little bit of a struggle for our businesses to get back up to speed. Some of them are not going to survive only simply because they don't have the cash flow they need to stay afloat, to purchase their products and pay their staff and pay their leases. So some of them won't survive for those reasons, but the ones that are in a good cash financial position are going to be able to survive. They're going to have a couple bad quarters, but everything should rebound. People are anticipating that we should get back to some normalcy here within the next year.
And I think just to expand that a little bit, I wanted to get your take. So there's a lot of people in the school of thought that this pause on the economy has now created somewhat of a pent up demand for manufactured goods, let's say. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody I've been talking to, they have people ready and wanting to buy their products. They're just waiting for them to reopen. A lot of people have not spent money the last few months that they normally would have. So they have a little bit of extra income in their households that they can spend on these items, as well as the stimulus money that a lot of people have received to purchase the products. And then even in the real estate market, talking to a couple of real estate professionals, they said there's been a huge pent up demand in that. Once they reopened, houses are pretty much flying off the shelf. They're selling very quickly. So again, speaking to the point, it's not like the 2008 crash, what was a real estate crisis. People still want to get, into new homes. And so it's going to be totally different this time around.
Do you think some of the difference and some of what might end up being some assistance to this is that we are in probably the most historically low interest rate environment ever?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, interest rates are at an all-time low. I don't know if they've ever been lower than they are today. A lot of people are refinancing their homes, which is putting a lot of extra money in their pockets as well. So that, it certainly increases a household's cash flow just by doing those things. And buying a new home now, they're able to buy a little bit bigger home because they can afford it because of the interest rates being lower. And even for businesses, I think that that's going to be very enticing for the ones that want to do some expansion projects. Borrowing money at 2-3% interest rates is unheard of. It's almost like giving away free money.
Right, absolutely. I want to thank you again for joining me on today's show. Please stay safe with you and your family, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.